Man, love can be a real. What's going on, guys? Welcome to my review of Heart Eyes, the first big slasher release of 2025. Now, first, full disclosure here, I just want to be completely upfront. I am an absolute slasher slut, okay? It's my favorite subgenre of horror. It might even be my favorite subgenre in all of movies. And it's a genre where even the bottom of the bottom, the absolute schlock that this genre is capable of producing, I can still have a lot of fun with and get a lot of enjoyment out of. So, it's one of those things where I might be a little more forgiving for certain things than I might be in other types of movies, but I just wanted to be completely transparent about how much I love slashers, and I might be a little more kind to them than other genres of movies. And so, just getting that out in front, it's a bias. I'm working on it. Sue me. Now, getting back to Hard Eyes, this is one of those movies where the screenwriter is actually what gets me excited more than anything else. When I see the name Christopher Landon under the writer's credit, I immediately get excited. I mean, this guy has delivered some of the best slasher movies of the last decade, in my opinion. And so the second I see him on something, I'm immediately intrigued and I'm definitely going to check it out. He's the one that's brought us both Happy Death Day 1 and 2, as well as Freaky, and I think all of those have been awesome. And it's kicked off this little kind of subgenre within the subgenre where you take a classic movie concept and then you throw it in a blender with a slasher movie and you see what you get. And you know, the Happy Death Day movies are kind of a slasher version of Groundhog Day. Freaky, of course, being Freaky Friday. It's also spawned off other people to make movies in kind of this similar ilk. We had Totally Killer not too long ago. That was kind of a Back to the Future slasher spin. Now, Hard Eyes itself isn't necessarily taking a specific classic movie and putting a slasher twist on it. It's really more taking that kind of Hallmark rom-com genre and putting a slasher spin on that. But did the streak continue, and did I enjoy Hard Eyes like I've enjoyed the previous few slashers in this style? Let's get into the review. So starting with the positives, and I think the first thing that stands out immediately about this movie is just how hard it dives into and how much fun it has with the Valentine's Day theme. Now, this isn't the first time we've had a Valentine's Day horror movie. It's not even the first Valentine's Day themed slasher movie we've had. I think the most notable being My Bloody Valentine back in 1981, which introduced us to the iconic coal miner killer. And even though I think, you know, that's a very underrated movie, as well as the remake, surprisingly, it feels more like a slasher movie that is more so just taking place on Valentine's Day. And outside of, you know, Valentine's Day being a topic of conversation and some decorations in the background, it really doesn't offer anything in terms of doing anything interesting with the holiday itself. On the other hand, however, Hard Eyes completely douses itself in everything it can dealing with Valentine's Day. I mean, from the music, the themes, the aesthetic, it just gives a really strong Valentine's Day feel and takes more advantage of what the holiday has to offer, more so than I think a movie like My Bloody Valentine did. I mean, hell, Hard Eyes, the killer themselves, has glowing red heart eyes on his mask, literally. I mean, the coal miner only had a pickaxe and a breathing problem, so. And sticking with the Hard Eyes killer, you know, in terms of the look and the physical performance, I think it's a really solid character. And the, you know, the glowing red heart-shaped eyes that I mentioned earlier is a really cool look in terms of the mask. I think the combination of a crossbow and a machete is a really intimidating weapon set. And, you know, as far as the killer side of things, it wasn't so high on the reveal. We'll get into that later. I think, you know, they were a presence. They were a force. They got some wicked kills in here. Now, unfortunately, there are a lot of kills in this movie that are kind of just one hit, like, boom, you're done kills. But when they actually do take their time and allow the Hard Eyes killer to get creative and really messed up with these kills, they do take full advantage of that. And this movie definitely earns its R rating, because when they have those standout kills, the blood and guts are flowing. I mean, carnage candy galore. And, you know, you definitely have to have that. You got to check that box for me when you're making a slasher movie. And I think Hard Eyes does deliver on that aspect. I really enjoyed the two leads here, played by Olivia Holt and Mason Gooding. I think they had really good chemistry together, and you need that in any great rom-com. The two leads got to have good chemistry, and their comedic timing play off really well with one another. And, you know, this isn't their first go-around in a slasher movie. You know, Olivia Holt was in Totally Killer, which I mentioned earlier, and then Mason Gooding has been in the previous two Scream movies, and he's going to be in the upcoming one. So, and he's actually been my favorite character of the new batch of characters in those movies. And so they both are in kind of similar environments here in this movie, and they continue to shine in those roles. We got Jordana Brewster in here, as well as Scream King and original Stan himself, Devin Sawa. They kind of play these caricature versions of homicide detectives, and there's a lot of jokes at their expense, and I enjoyed the scenes that they got. You know, it's not too much, but when they are on screen, it was very enjoyable and they're really funny. And I always love to see Devon Sawa in a horror movie. It just feels good, you know. Going back a little bit to talk about the writing again in this movie, this movie is in contention for being the funniest of Christopher Landon's projects, and that's a kind of a high bar to meet. My girlfriend is typically super harsh on comedy. It's like showing her a comedy is such a risk because she could be sitting there with a blank face the entire time, and that just creates an awkward experience. But from beginning to end on this movie, she was rolling her ass off, and I was right there with her. Writing comedy for movies is really tough these days because there's always a conversation about what you can and cannot joke about. How far is too far, and you have to worry about not ruffling the wrong feathers, and you don't want to offend anybody. And that's honestly led, if you ask a lot of people, to feel that, do you think comedy in movies is dead? They'll tell you yes. And I think I agree. I don't think we get the level of comedy that we used to in movies. And I know comedy is subjective, but in my opinion, Hard Eyes really is an hilarious movie. I think it does really well at making fun of a lot of the qualities and traits that the younger adult generations have. And I think it does so without stepping on any toes. I don't think it's going to offend anybody, but it doesn't feel like it's pulling any of its punches either. And so I think it's truly an effective comedy movie that will get people to laugh their ass off. I know it did for me. So if you're looking for it to deliver on the comedy side of things, I definitely think it does. And that's really an achievement in today's day and age. So I commend Hard Eyes for delivering on the comedic side of things. Moving on, I don't really have anything that I'm kind of mixed on, so I'm going to jump straight to the negatives. And really, I only have one big criticism in terms of the negatives, but it is something that can sometimes make or break a slasher movie, and that is the reveal of the killer, who is Heart Eyes. Simply put, I found the reveal of the identity of Heart Eyes in this movie super underwhelming, and I think the main reason that it fell so flat for me is because I figured it out so early in the movie. This is something I always try to avoid in these kind of movies because I just want to turn my brain off. I don't want to figure it out too early because I don't want the reveal in the end to be underwhelming because I've already known what's going to happen the entire time. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that for this movie. They don't give a ton of breadcrumbs to lead you to the trail and figure out who it is, but there's one that they give fairly early in the movie that if your brain does make the connection, it leaves zero doubt as to what the identity of the killer is. And so once my brain clicked on that, I was like, damn, it's definitely them. That's who the killer is. So when the big moment comes and the mask comes off, the air had kind of already been let out of the balloon. But honestly, even if I didn't catch on to who the killer was super early in the movie, I think I still would have been underwhelmed with the reveal because the identity of who Hard Eye is just wasn't that interesting or compelling to me, and it just raised more questions than answers. And so it reminded me a lot of the reveal in Scream 6, just in terms of the reveal though, because in Scream 6, when the mask comes off in that movie falls off a cliff. It becomes a fucking cartoon from that point forward. That's not the case in Hard Eyes. I'm just speaking in terms of how underwhelming and easy to predict the reveal is. But in Hard Eyes, as opposed to Scream 6, the scene that comes after the mask coming off completely redeems the underwhelmingness of the reveal itself. So Scream 6, nothing redeeming from the moment the mask comes off. Hard Eyes, mask comes off, awesome scene comes after that. So they're not exactly the same, but it was a similar vibe. So even though that is my only kind of negative critique on Hard Eyes, it is a pretty big one. I mean, if you're going to have a reveal in a slasher movie, it has to land, and I don't see this landing for other people just like it didn't land for me, especially if they do pick up on that big ass crumb that's left at like the halfway point in the movie, because you still have half the movie left and you know who the killer is the whole time. And so that mystery just isn't there anymore. It's like if you watched an episode of Scooby-Doo and you knew who it was the whole time, that scene would just fall flat every time at the end. And you can't have that in Scooby-Doo or a slasher movie. So it's my one negative, but it is a pretty big negative to have in this style of movie. So there you have it, guys. Those are my thoughts on Hard Eyes. I think it was a really solid slasher movie that gets held back just a little bit by the predictability, but despite that predictability, I really, really enjoyed it. I'm thinking an 8 out of 10 on the score here. I hope we continue to get a lot more of these kind of genre mashup slasher movies because I've enjoyed most, if not all of them thus far, and I'm not tired of them yet. And I don't see myself getting tired of them for the foreseeable future. And so keep them coming. Let me know what you guys think of Hard Eyes down in the comments below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel while you're here. I would greatly appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next review. Peace out.